Somewhere, there is probably a video of you before you can remember existing. You are sitting in a high chair. Someone is saying your name. You turn towards the camera like you understand exactly who you are. Everyone in the room remembers that moment. Except you. You do not remember the room. You do not remember the voice. You do not remember what it felt like to be that small. And for a long time, scientists thought the answer was simple. Babies just do not make real memories yet. But that answer has a problem. Babies do remember. They remember faces. They remember sounds. They remember routines. They can learn that one action causes another. They can recognize things they have seen before. So the mystery is not why babies cannot remember. The mystery is why a baby can remember something and then the adult that baby becomes remembers nothing. This is called infantile amnesia. Sigmund Freud helped make the term famous more than a century ago, after noticing that adults almost never have clear memories from their first years of life. Most people's first real memories begin around age 3 or 4. Before that, there is usually nothing. Not darkness exactly, more like a missing chapter. For years, scientists blame that missing chapter on an immature brain. The hippocampus, one of the brain regions that helps turn experiences into memories, is still developing in early childhood. So the stories seemed neat. No mature hippocampus, no proper memories. Then scientists started testing babies directly, and babies ruined the neat story. In the late 1960s, psychologist Carolyn Rovi Collier helped develop one of the most famous experiments in infant memory. The setup looked almost too simple to matter. A baby lies in a cot. A ribbon is tied from the baby's ankle to a colorful mobile hanging above them. When the baby kicks, the mobile moves. At first, the kicking is random. Then the baby notices. Kick foot? Mobile moves. Very quickly, the baby starts kicking more. That alone is interesting, but the real test came later. Days later, researchers put the baby back under the mobile. The ribbon was attached again, and the baby started kicking. Not randomly. They remembered. A 3-month-old baby, who cannot speak and cannot explain anything, had stored something about that little world above their cot. But here is the strange part. The memory was picky. Change the mobile too much, change the surrounding fabric, change the context, and the memory might not appear. But give the baby a small reminder, even a brief glimpse of the old mobile, and the memory could return. That is not an empty mind. That is a mind making memories in a world where everything depends on clues. It is like writing something down, then years later trying to read it after the alphabet has changed. The message may still exist, but you no longer have the right key. That may be closer to what happens to your baby memories. They were made by a version of you that did not yet have the tools you use now. A baby does not understand time the way you do. A baby does not have a life story. A baby does not think, "This happened to me last summer at my grandmother's house." A baby has warmth, smell, faces, hunger, pain, rhythm, the sound of footsteps, the shape of a ceiling, the feeling of being lifted. The memory is not built like an adult memory. It is not a little movie with a title. It is more like a pattern. And later, when you become someone who thinks in words, names, dates, and stories, those early patterns become hard to reach. Language seems to be part of the lock. Children who can talk about their experiences more clearly tend to form more detailed autobiographical memories. Not because words simply describe memory, because words organize memory. A parent says, "Do you remember when we went to the park and you fell in the mud?" Suddenly, the event has a shape. There was a place, there was a moment, there was a before, there was an after, and most importantly, there was a you inside it. That part matters. To remember your life, you need some sense of yourself as the person who lived it. But in infancy, the self is still being built. You are not yet the narrator of your own story. You are still inside the stream of experience. That may be why early childhood disappears in such a strange way. It is not like normal forgetting. In normal forgetting, old memories fade slowly, but childhood amnesia has a cliff. A young child can remember events from when they were 3. Then, only a few years later, many of those same memories are gone. Psychologists Patricia Bauer and Marina Larkina followed children over time and found something surprising. Children between 5 and 7 could still remember many events from when they were around 3, but by 8 or 9, far more of those early memories had disappeared. So childhood amnesia may not fully happen when you are a baby. It may happen later, while you are becoming a child. The memories are there for a while, then the system changes. The brain that stored them is not the same brain trying to retrieve them, and in early life, the brain is changing fast. The hippocampus is not just growing, it is being rewired. New connections are forming, old connections are being trimmed. The brain is building itself while using itself. That is brilliant for learning a new world quickly. A baby has to learn faces, voices, gravity, food, language, danger, sleep, movement, and the rules of every room it enters. But that flexibility may come with a cost. A brain that is constantly rebuilding may not preserve every old pathway. Some early memories may not be deleted. They may be buried under renovation, like trying to find the original wiring in a house that has been rebuilt room by room while people were still living inside it. Then in 2025, researchers pushed the mystery further. They scanned awake infants in an fMRI machine, which is already remarkable because babies are not famous for lying still in giant noisy tubes. The babies were shown images of faces, objects, and scenes. Later, they saw an old image next to a new one. If a baby recognized the old image, they tended to look at it longer. And the striking part was what happened in the brain. When the baby first saw an image, stronger activity in the hippocampus predicted stronger recognition later. In other words, the infant hippocampus was not just sitting there unfinished and useless. It was encoding. It was helping make memory. The effect was clearest in babies older than about 12 months. But it changes the shape of the whole question. If the memory system is already working, then infantile amnesia may not be a failure to record. It may be a failure to retrieve. The memories may be less like ashes and more like letters written in a language you no longer speak. That would explain why early life can shape you without being available to you. You may not remember being comforted, but your body can still learn what safety feels like. You may not remember a lullaby, but the melody can still feel familiar. You may not remember the first house you lived in, but a smell, a wall color, or a certain kind of light can hit you with a feeling that seems to come from nowhere. That is the unsettling part. Your first years are not gone like an empty room is gone. They are gone like foundations are gone. You do not see them. You cannot visit them. You cannot point to the exact brick, but the rest of the building is standing on top of them. There is one more possibility. Some scientists now wonder whether at least some infant memories persist in hidden form much longer than we thought. Not as scenes you can replay, not as a clear image of your first birthday, but as traces, patterns, locked doors. Researchers have even begun testing whether children can recognize old home videos filmed from their own baby perspective. The idea sounds almost like science fiction. Somewhere inside a child, there may be a trace of seeing the world from a cot, a pram, or the floor. Before the child can explain why it feels familiar, maybe those traces fade. Maybe they remain but become unreachable. No one knows for sure yet, but what we do know changes the way the mystery feels. You were not absent from your first years. You were not waiting for consciousness to switch on. You were learning constantly. You were building a map of voices, faces, rooms, routines, and feelings. You were forming memories before you had the words to hold them. And then, as you grew, the very brain that allowed you to become a person with a story may have sealed off the earliest pages of that story. So when you look at a baby photo and feel nothing specific, that does not mean nothing happened. It means the person in the photo lived before your memory learned how to speak. That baby is not a stranger. That baby is the beginning of you. You just cannot remember meeting them.